This is a dark and chilling story about betrayal and ancient evil, where people face the dreadful consequences unleashed by a long-hidden secret. In the bustling city of Los Angeles, an affluent businessman named Mr. Park found himself in dire straits. Despite his immense wealth, he faced a challenge money couldn't solve. His newborn son was gravely ill, and doctors were baffled. Desperate for a solution, Park summoned Hwa Rim, a revered shaman from Korea, and her apprentice, Bong Gil. Though Park's family had left Korea generations ago, their ties to the homeland remained strong. Upon their arrival, the shamans made their way to the hospital where Park's wife anxiously awaited. Skeptical of the supernatural, she nevertheless allowed them to see her son. As Hwa Rim tapped into the spirit world, she immediately sensed a dark energy. She revealed that the child's suffering was rooted in a disturbance caused by his ancestors, leaving the mother in shock. The shamans later visited Park's opulent home to delve deeper into the mystery. In a tense meeting, Park disclosed a troubling family history. The firstborn in each generation had always suffered. His father was paralyzed, and his older brother had met a tragic end in a mental hospital. Moreover, his wife had endured multiple miscarriages before the birth of their constantly ill son. Hwa Rim explained that this phenomenon, known as grave calling, suggested that the baby's affliction was due to his grandfather's restless spirit, improperly buried. She insisted that the only solution was to either relocate or cremate the grandfather's remains, a task requiring significant resources and expertise. Undeterred by the costs, Park was willing to do whatever it took to save his child. Thus, Hwa Rim and Bong Gil journeyed back to Korea to assemble a team. They enlisted Sang Deok, a venerable feng shui master known for selling auspicious burial lands, and Yong Gon, a skilled mortician and funeral homeowner. After explaining the gravity of Park's predicament and the generous payment, both men agreed to join the mission. The following day, Park arrived in Korea to meet with the team. Strangely, he insisted that the coffin remain unopened and that the grave be cremated as swiftly as possible. He confessed that his parents and other relatives opposed the plan, but he was determined to proceed for the sake of his son. When Sang Deok inquired about Park's grandfather, Park's evasiveness hinted at secrets yet to be uncovered. The group followed Park to the top of a remote mountain, a place teeming with foxes. Sang Deok, the feng shui master, found the location deeply unsettling. According to feng shui principles, graves and foxes should never coexist. Their presence together was an ominous sign. As they examined the tombstone, they noticed it bore no name, only random annotations. Sang Deok remarked on the peculiarity of such a modest tombstone for someone from a wealthy family. Park explained that his grandfather, who had done much for their country, was buried at this site on the recommendation of a monk named Gisune. He added that the simplicity of the grave was a precaution against the many grave robbers of that era. Despite this explanation, Sang Deok remained unconvinced and abruptly retreated to his car. The others soon joined him, seeking answers. Sang Deok voiced his unease, declaring the sight too strange and warning that disturbing anything there could endanger them all. However, Hwa Rim, driven by the urgency to save Park's child, pleaded with Sang Deok to reconsider. She proposed performing rituals to ward off any curses while they moved the grave. Reluctantly, Sang Deok agreed. The next day, the group returned to the mountain, ready to dig up the grave. Hwa Rim and Bong Gil prepared a ritual involving 5 pigs and 5 workers born in the same year, designed to distract the evil spirits and aid in the excavation. As preparations began, Park was surprised to see his elderly aunt arrive, determined to witness the exhumation of her father's grave. As the digging commenced, Bong Gil chanted the ceremonial incantations while Hwa Rim began to dance with fervor. The pigs were sacrificed, and soon the workers unearthed the coffin. All seemed to be proceeding smoothly until one of the workers spotted a bizarre creature. Reacting swiftly, he decapitated the creature with his shovel, only for it to emit a chilling, human-like scream. Suddenly, the weather turned, and a torrential downpour began. Sang Deok advised Park to delay the cremation, and Park agreed. They decided to store the coffin at a nearby hospital where Yonggun's acquaintance works. Later, Sang Deok visited a nearby village and consulted a monk about Gisune, only to learn that no one by that name was known. When Sangdeok mentioned the mountain tomb, the monk revealed that it was rumored to contain treasure, attracting numerous grave robbers over the years. He even showed Sangdeok some relics left behind by these intruders, which were stored in the temple. Meanwhile, at the funeral home, the caretaker got curious and looked somewhat compelled to open the coffin. The shamans caught him, but it was too late. The grandfather's spirit had escaped. Hua Rim felt the spirit pass through her and collapsed unconscious. Across the ocean in Los Angeles, Park's disabled father heard a familiar voice instructing him to open the window. Complying naively, he unknowingly allowed the spirit inside. Moments later, the spirit attacks him until he died. In another room, Park's mother was dancing in front of the TV when the spirit attacked and killed her as well. Back in Korea, Hua Rim performed a ritual to summon the grandfather's spirit into Bong Gil's body, hoping to understand its intentions. The ritual succeeded, and Bong Gil, now possessed, declared he would only leave after taking all his descendants. He expressed deep resentment toward his family for neglecting him for so long. Meanwhile, Park received a call from Sangdeok, who warned that the grandfather's spirit was intent on annihilating his own bloodline. As Park heard a knock on his door, the voice on the phone, claiming to be Sangdeok, instructed him not to open it, but to open the window instead, promising protection. Foolishly, Park complied, allowing the spirit inside. Moments later, the real Sangdeok burst into the room with hotel staff, finding Park possessed, drinking water compulsively and speaking Japanese, a language he had never learned. In a desperate move, Sangdeok called for an ambulance, but by the time they arrived, Park, under the spirit's control, had snapped his own neck and died. With no other options left, the shamans resolved to cremate the grandfather's grave before the vengeful spirit could cause further destruction. Meanwhile, in the U.S., the vengeful spirit approached Park's baby, poised to strike. In a desperate move, Sangdeok called Park's aunt, urging her to allow the immediate cremation of her father's remains. He stressed that this was the only way to end the killing spree. Although hesitant, the aunt eventually granted permission. The group swiftly cremated the grandfather's remains along with the coffin. At that moment, the spirit looming over the baby let out a pained scream before vanishing completely. With the spirit eradicated, life returned to normal and Park's baby began to recover. A month later, Sangdeok received a frantic call from the worker who had decapitated the strange snake. Since the incident, the worker had fallen gravely ill and was haunted by nightmarish visions, filled with regret and pleading for a proper burial for the snake. Determined to set things right, Sangdeok returned to the burial site and started digging. He unearthed the snake, still writhing despite its severed head. To his horror, beneath the snake lay another coffin, large enough for 2 adults and positioned vertically. Terrified, Sangdeok summoned the rest of the group to the mountaintop. They arrived, stunned to see the enormous coffin wrapped in dense chains. With great effort, they managed to remove it, intending to cremate it. However, as night had fallen, they decided to wait until morning. The group spent the night at the local monk's place, where Sangdeok had previously sought guidance. They later met with Park's aunt to inquire about the second coffin. She professed ignorance and urged them to do whatever was necessary. By now, Sangdeok had pieced together that Park's grandfather had been a traitor who sold out his country during the Japanese-Korean War. As a reward, he gained immense wealth from the Japanese. Sangdeok speculated that this betrayal was why the grandfather was punished and buried in such a cursed location. However, the aunt tearfully revealed that the monk Jisune himself was Japanese, leaving her baffled as to why her father, who had been loyal to them, ended up in such a sinister resting place. Later that night, while everyone was asleep, Bong Gil was awakened by strange noises and went to investigate. He discovered that dozens of pig livers had been removed from their bodies. In the distance, he saw a massive figure devouring the monk's body. Alarmed, Bong Gil quickly summoned Hua Rim, and the two rushed to check on the coffin, only to find it empty. Suddenly, a towering samurai approached, demanding to know Hua Rim's identity. Thinking quickly, she spoke in Japanese, pretending to be a subordinate. The samurai initially believed her and asked her to prepare a sweet fish. However, he soon saw through her deception and attacked. The others arrived just in time, and Bong Gil bravely stabbed the samurai, but it had little effect. The samurai retaliated, severely injuring Bong Gil. Just then, the crowing of a rooster signaled the approaching dawn. The samurai transformed into a ball of fire and vanished. Bong-gil was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Later, Sang-dyuk returned to the monk's place alone and began examining the grave robber's belongings. He soon realized that the people in the recovered photo were not robbers. During the war, the Japanese had impaled the ground with iron stakes to block feng shui energy, vital to the Korean national spirit. These people were actually patriots on a mission to find and remove these iron stakes. Sang-dyuk then returned to the burial site and discovered the samurai's body lying dormant. In the next scene, he met with Hwa-rim and Yong-gun and informed them about the iron stakes. The group concluded that the samurai spirit was merely protecting the iron stake. They devised an almost impossible plan to distract the samurai and destroy the iron stake after digging deep into the grave. They noticed that the demon had not attacked Bong-gil in areas of his body where Buddhist scriptures were inscribed, so they decided to cover their bodies with the same inscriptions. The next day, the trio headed to the mountain for their final mission. Hwa-rim performed a ritual to lure the samurai demon out of the grave, using sweet fish as bait, as the samurai had requested. With the spirit out of the way, the two men began digging in search of the iron stake. Despite hours of hard work, they found nothing. Moments later, the spirit transformed into an orb of fire and descended onto the grave, where Sang-dyuk was still searching. The spirit attacked him, inflicting severe injuries. As it prepared to take Sang-dyuk's liver, the others threw a bucket of horse blood on it, causing it to scream in pain. At that moment, Sang-dyuk realized that the samurai was the iron stake itself. A vision revealed Monk Gisune embedding a sword inside a decapitated samurai's body, turning him into a ghoul. Afterward, Park's grandfather's grave was used to conceal the relic. From his vision, Sang-dyuk understood that the samurai was composed of flaming metal. In feng shui, water counters fire and wood counters metal, so wet wood would neutralize flaming metal. Sang-dyuk picked up a wooden stick, smeared it with his blood, and drove it into the samurai's foot. He then swung the stick with all his might, striking the samurai repeatedly until the spirit vanished. As the samurai's body disintegrated, Bong-gil, who had been under the spirit's control in the hospital, regained consciousness. With the evil spirit destroyed, Sang-dyuk, severely injured, was rushed to the hospital. He reflected that he might die soon, but felt at peace, having been surrounded by death his whole life. Now it was just his turn. In the hospital, the others wept and prayed for his recovery. Miraculously, despite his readiness to give up on life, Sang-dyuk made a full recovery. A few months later, the group had returned to their ordinary lives. They attended the wedding of Sang-dyuk's daughter, and as they gathered for a group photo, the story came to an end.